Claire Alderman is going to open the meeting with the karakia.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te whanau, ki mā kene kuta, ki mā karakara ki tai, e hia piana, ki o te kura, e tio, e kuka, e hauhu, tihei, bōhua.
Thanks, Claire. Right, I will welcome to the Waimakariri Zone Committee meeting today. We'll start off with agenda item number 1, business. Do we have any apologies? I think possibly Arahata Ruben may not make it.
There was a Runanga meeting today, you see.
Yes.
So.
Yes, he was at that. He thought he'll make it if he can, but he's probably not going to.
No, so everyone else is present and accounted for. Right, so great to see everyone here. We'll just go around the room with introductions, starting from my left with a new face.
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm just covering for Adrian while she's away.
Kia ora, I'm Ruby. I'm the youth representative.
Kia ora, I'm Tim Fulton. I'm the District Council's appointee committee.
Kia ora, Claire Alderman, I'm community rep.
Kia ora, John Cook. I'm one of the Ngātuhuriri Runanga reps.
Erin Harvey, community representative.
Martha Jolly, community rep.
Claire Mackay, North Canterbury Councillor, Environment Canterbury.
Everyone, Murray Griffin, facilitator for the committee.
Thank you, and David.
North Canterbury News.
Oh, Jess.
Kia ora, ko Jess Tupunwa from EOS Ecology. Kia ora, Brian from EOS Ecology.
Kia ora, ko Andrew Arps, Zone Manager from Environment Canterbury.
Kia ora, ko Nerida Tupunwa from the Liberty for Waimakariri.
Kia ora, so Sophie Allen, Water Environment Advisor on the Free District Council.
Tēnā koutou, my name is Lorena and I'm the Three Waters Compliance Officer. I work with Sophie's team and you'll see my name popping up a lot because I'm reporting on stormwater distress consents and technically as well for wastewater and water tank consents, but 99% of my time is spent in stormwater at the moment.
Thank you.
Kia ora, I'm Lucy. I'm from the Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust. Kia ora, Kawana Kulta from EOS Ecology.
Cool, thanks everybody. Right, can the committee members please advise if there are any changes or updates to the register of interests that need to be recorded?
I just said one thing. I think a recent document said that I'm contracted to write a book about the Central Plains water. There's also a dairy holdings story as well, so just where my interest. I don't think it captures both at the moment.
Yeah. Catch that one, Kate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Any other changes to the interests? No. Oh, right, moving on to agenda item number 2, which is the opportunity for the public to speak. So we've got Lucy Veltrop here today from the Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust to give us an update. Thanks, Lucy.
Kia ora everyone. So I'm going to give a hopefully quick overview of what the Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust has been up to in the last couple of years. Judith was supposed to be doing this but is unfortunately unwell, so I'm going to be filling in for her today. So a bit of background about the trust. The trust was formed in 2022 following the Waimakariri Water Zone Committee discussions about a lack of help for members of the community to protect and enhance Indigenous biodiversity on a voluntary basis. The vision of the trust is to see vibrant, healthy Indigenous ecosystems valued across the Waimakariri district. And the purpose of the trust is to provide the necessary information, education and resources to enable the community to protect, restore, create and sustainably manage Indigenous biodiversity in the Waimakariri district. So the trust received establishment funding from the WDC Land and Water Committee and Zone Committee funding for the Trust's Visioning Workshop. We also recently received funding from WDC again from the ZIPA funding. We currently only have 6 trustees, but we're looking for 2 more over the next few months. So we'll be doing some advertising for this soon. So what the trust did from 2022 to 2023, so there was initial coordinator, Andrew Thompson, and now I've taken over as the coordinator. The trust had a visioning workshop in November 2022, and there were 40 outside organisations who came along, and they helped identify the 3 key roles of the trust, which was to provide support, advice and coordination. So the trust held a Winter Series 1 in 2022, and there were 6 talks all held in Rangiora, and there were around 50 attendees at each event. The trust went on Compass FM and featured in the local news, and the trust also built relationships with the Ashley Rakahuri Riviki Group, Whanganui Biodiversity Trust, Waimakariri Irrigation Limited, and the Waimakariri District Council in ECAN. The trust also did research into funding opportunities. So in 2023, the Dyken Wetland Restoration Project has been our main and largest project. We got funding to carry out some initial investigations, and we have just recently decided on what our next steps are and are seeking funding for this. We held a Winter Series 2. We had 3 events held in different parts of the district. We had one in West Eaton, one in Oxford and Wakapu Beach. We had an average of about 40 attendees across those 3 events. In 2023, we also worked with Waimakariri Irrigation Limited to scope up on-farm projects. We started to work with Siobhan from Enviro Schools. I helped with the Rangiora High School Enviro Expo and got Ashley Rakahuri School involved with the Dyken project. And students came out for a site visit and a stream and wetland exploration day, and they will continue to be involved as the project progresses. We started to work with Annabelle Wilson on the Fernside Wetland project and help her develop a plan and put together a funding application. We started to work with Jackie and Grant Freeman on the Hunter Stream project. We also helped them to develop a plan and put together a funding application. And we also helped other landowners with planting plans and or connected them with experts. And some of these ended up turning into projects too. So now to 2024, we're currently seeking funding for another coordinator to complement my skills and also to fund the continuation of my role. We have completed funding applications for projects. We have many other projects on the go that are currently in the planning stage. And there are more opportunities than I can handle as a part-time coordinator. We are collaborating with Waimakariri Irrigation Limited and WDC on a biodiversity mapping project with some input from ECAN too. We've had a busy start to the year with events. We held a rural biodiversity event in February, a lifestyle block event in March, and in April we had a Growing Your Garden for Birds event and held a Discover Nighttime Critters event for the City Nature Challenge. We've been collaborating with Main Power to deliver the Waimakariri Biodiversity Fund, and this closed on the 29th of April, and we're judging this next week. We have been continuing to develop our relationships. We have connected with Concol, Rangiora High School, Main Power, Peace Free Waimakariri, and the Christchurch Colleges Group. We continue to have a good relationship with the Waimakariri District Council colleges and other staff, and we have regular meetings with them. They have given us technical advice and support and have been great sounding boards. And we also support WDC projects such as the Lineside Road purchase, and will continue to be involved in that project. And the Trust also gave input to the Waimakariri Natural Environment Strategy too. We also have great support from ECAN for most of our projects, but especially with the Dyken project, which has been great. And lastly, our website, Instagram and Facebook pages are now active and having some good engagement up there also. But yeah, thank you for all your time and the opportunity to speak today. And thank you for all your support over the last few years of with collaborations and funding for our projects and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you have any questions, just fire them at me.
Awesome, Lucy, and I think we all find it really exciting hearing about all of the stuff that you've been up to, and I can say that from the perspective of the Sefton Saltwater Creek Catchment Group that you've been a great help to us, and more to come, we hope. So yeah, certainly keen to see the Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust going from strength to strength as much as possible. Does anyone have any questions for Lucy? No? Anything from the floor? Anyone from the floor like to ask any questions of Lucy? No, you've blown us all away, Lucy. Thanks very much, Lucy. Thanks for coming in. And are you staying for the meeting? Yeah. Cool. Right, do we have any other public speakers? I think that might be all, is it, Laurie, if we haven't got Mike here today? Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 3, which is the reports. Before we start those, under the WDC standing orders, the public are not allowed to ask questions about agenda items. However, the input of the public is valued by the Zone Committee, and I hereby move that section 9.4 of the standing orders be suspended for items 3 and 4 to allow members of the public to ask questions prior to the item being moved. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
John Cook. All in favour? All right. Anyone against? No. Carried. Right, agenda item 3.1 is the action plan budget recommendations. It does actually say 3.2, but it is item 3.1. So this item is for the committee to confirm its support of projects to be funded by the Action Plan Fund of $75,000. The fund has been substantially oversubscribed this year with nearly $150,000 of applications received. The committee members have visited many of the projects in the last 6 months, and this has helped to inform the allocation of the fund. There were 12 projects altogether, of which one was granted back in September 2023 to the Ashley Rakahuru River Care Group for estuary shorebird monitoring, and one had already been allocated to the Sefton Saltwater Creek Catchment Group for the 3rd year of their monitoring program. I would like to note that I am the coordinator of the Sefton Saltwater Creek Catchment Group. However, the decision to allocate this funding was already made in 2021-22. So 3 of the projects have not been proposed for support because they didn't align as well with the priorities of the action plan, and these were the Black Maps aerial mapping project, administration costs for the Oxford Dark Sky project, and consent costs, among other things, for Te Kohaka o Tuatara Trust. So we've therefore ended up with 9 projects recommended to be funded in 2023-24, of which the Ashley Rakahuru River Care Group has already received their funding, leaving 8 projects to be decided on today. And they're all listed there in the agenda with the application details attached and the proposed funds to be allocated. Some of the projects have been recommended for partial funding where this has been possible in order to fit with the budget that we have. So do the committee have any questions regarding any of the 8 projects? Madam Chair, I just wonder if we move and second the recommendations, and then can we have that discussion including those questions? Do we not need potentially any answers to those questions before we move and we can move on?
Normally questions first.
Okay, well, yeah, sorry, it must be different in this council. Thank you. Any questions from anyone?
Just the process. So just to clarify for the meeting that these, I think you talked about proposals, these are staff recommendations. How should we describe these? They've come to us in the agenda. These are staff. Yeah. Okay.
Staff recommendations.
Yeah, just
based on discussions and workshopping and our visits to the projects.
Just want to get there.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Clear. Thank you.
Cool. So I do have a question, and this is actually for Lucy. So just in regard to project 2, which is Hunter's Stream, so the proposed funding that we've got included here is for less than half of what was requested. And so I understand you've been involved with that project for quite some time, Lucy, and presumably it will now be more of a staged approach, which is going to hopefully be more manageable for the landowners as well. So even though the funding proposed is reduced, I'm really keen to see the catchment group aspect of that project continue. Is that still the plan with Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. So, any other questions from the committee? No?
I'll just add one action.
Yeah.
Just given particularly the size of the potential allocation to the Lees Road properties, 3 properties, just wanted to raise up the question and from some discussion as to whether they are all contingent on the other. Like if we fail to, if we fund one with the other side, or they, just wanted to sort of harness that debate.
Which ones are they?
This was the Wakeman ones, effectively.
Down at Kaipoi there?
Yeah.
No, I think they were all pretty self-contained.
They're all self-contained, so just want to get that clear in my head.
Yeah, so the fencing one along the watercourse there with the setback, that was its own project and he had his plans. And then the other 2 were really the the control of the wilding, willows and crack through there.
So they're adjoining in a physical sense, but not.
They're adjoining, but they are to me at least 3 separate projects. Yeah. And there were obviously other parts of those projects, but we're not able to fund those for various reasons. All right, are there any questions from the floor? Yerida?
I have a short question about the Hunter Spring stream, about the plant maintenance, because it was a little bit of concern about how the plants were going to be maintained. Is there any ideas about that in the project, or are they going to have any plan forward to looking?
I think Bex Dollery is involved. She did not have a restoration plan for them. She told them about maintenance and those sort of things they need to do.
Okay, thank you, Lucy.
Cool, thank you. Right, so we'll move on to the recommendation. We have recommendation 2.1 that the Zone Committee receives the information provided on the proposed CWMS Action Plan budget project initiatives to support for the 2023-24 financial year. Do we have a mover? Ruby. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Martha? All those in favour? Anyone against? No. Motion carried. We also have recommendation 2.2 that the Zone Committee approves its support for project initiatives based on the remaining $66,000 available of the $75,000 CWMS Action Plan budget allocated for each water zone for the 2023-24 financial year as per the 8 projects listed in the agenda. Do we have a mover?
Yep.
John? And a seconder?
Yep.
Tim? All those in favour? And against? No one against. Motion carried. Awesome. Right, so moving on to agenda item 3.2. I'd like to welcome Jessica Halsey from EOS Ecology, who is the Y Connection Waitaha Regional Manager, and I understand that Erin Harvey is joining her in her capacity as Coordinator of Waimakariri Land Care Trust, and Jessica's also got a couple of other members of EOS.
She's got a squad with us.
So I'll hand over to you.
And we're to send through a presentation to that.
Oh, okay. See if my phone available to receive.
We did go down.
That's right, should be here.
Those are we transfer.
Yeah. Just downloading.
reason why you whizzed through everything so quickly, so we had time for technical difficulties.
I know.
It happens when I don't send things through quick enough. I can do it without it.
Yes, so I've got it on screen.
Yes.
And just one button. So all web okay. Jesus Christ.
We've kind of become used to it, I think.
It's such a cheap system.
I know, yeah. They really went for the budget system.
So the first time I ever did the Y Connection presentation was back in May last year, and I had this whole presentation prepared and booklets and stuff, and it was at an event down in Dunsandel. And I got up ready to do it, first page loaded, and then the whole thing crashed after that. Everyone else's presentations worked apart from mine.
Oh.
So I did my whole presentation, I practiced it with all the slides, and I did the whole thing without it. And luckily we had leaflets in everyone's bags.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, if you just pull the leaflet out of your booklet, and I had to talk through that, and it was so.
Because you put so much work into them as well.
I mean, I don't, but yes. I'm quite lucky we've got a design team at EOS, so I ask them what I would like and then they make it. But when you practice to it, yes, and then the slides disappear, it's like, and I could feel the redness going up all the way up my head. It's just like a thermometer going all the way up the top of my head.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah, that can't be individual bits, so they can't like that, they can't do it from like bottom right to top left. It's amazing.
It's a very like delicate thing, like as soon as something
Yeah, it seems to be.
Hey!
Thank you.
Do I need to do anything from here, or do I just point at you?
You just point at me and I'll, well, at least I'll have a cable.
It's okay.
Yeah, you give me the nod.
I didn't mean to do this.
Just to practice.
It's okay, don't worry.
You'll have to do the manual.
That's right.
Kia ora everyone, ko Jessica Corona. I am from EOS Ecology. I am their Engagement Services Manager, and I'm the Regional Manager for the Y Connection project across Waitaha, Canterbury. The Y Connection project was funded out of the Essential Freshwater Fund, originally Just for Nature, which transitioned towards Essential Freshwater. And the Y Connection project sits amongst the catchment group entity of the Essential Freshwater Fund. This funded projects up and down the whole of the country. A lot of those particularly focus on supporting individual catchments, individual catchment groups, and building capability and capacity across the whole country. The Y Connection project itself, the key focus of that is building capability and capacity with the existing provider organisations up and down the country, who then build capability and capacity within the groups that they support. Now, some of you here today will have seen this presentation before, some of you haven't, but I will just give you a quick summary of the Y Connection project as it is, where it's progressed to now, and realistically what we hope it's going to look like in the future. Amazing. So the Y Connection project, as I said, it's a national project. It's supporting community and catchment groups up and down the country. It's split into two entities, the key one being Mountain to Sea Conservation Trust, which are a trust organisation based up in Northland. They have providers up and down the country that all provide community support, restoration support, school-based project programmes, all of those things all over the place. And they were the key foundation that received this fund. We as EOS Ecology are one of the provider organisations, but we've also provided technical and higher level support. So the Y Connection is split into two entities, the national support and the regional support. At a national level, you've got Mountain Sea Conservation Trust, who are providing the overarching project support. They're providing training, guidance to organisations. They're the ones reporting back to MFE, and they're providing support for all of us. Alongside them is ourselves, EOS Ecology. We are providing technical and science support. So we're a freshwater ecology company by trade, and through that we're providing science support, content and design support, and also geospatial and mapping support for all of the regions that are underneath the Y Connection. They're building a community-based monitoring website, which is due to be launched in June 2025 for all of those community groups to have a place to house any data that they're collecting. And they're also providing and creating a catchment map series, which I brought a couple of them with me today, which is a catchment map resource which each group gets given to them as kind of a starting block for them to understand the current state of their catchment before they start delving in and doing things on the ground. So the regions that are currently supported by the Y Connection project, you can see up here, of Northland up at the top, which is Mountains to Sea. They've also got organisation in Auckland and a partner organisation in Wellington. Currently, there's only 2 of us working down in the South Island. We are covering Waitaha, Canterbury, and Tasman Bay Guardians are actually currently only supporting Nelson and Tasman. They're still working through their support with Marlborough. But all of these regions are out and engaging and supporting groups now, and everyone's wonderfully, wonderfully busy. So the Waitaha support, we have split the region into 3, so we've got the north, mid and south. And you've got myself as the regional manager supporting the whole region and providing direct support to our coordinators. We've brought 2 of them here today. Helena over here is our South Canterbury coordinator, and Briar is our brand spanking new North Canterbury coordinator. Some of you may have met Kate before, who was handling the role before. She's just passed it on to Briar, and Courtney is our Mid Canterbury coordinator. They are then supported by our connectors, which are built of our existing science team, and their role as a connector is basically going along, giving that science expertise, giving the on-the-ground support, and I'll delve a little bit more to that into a minute. So in the process for the Y Connection, we needed to do a regional needs assessment, and we needed to create a tailored package of support. Now, originally when the project kicked off, which was I think it was May when the document was officially signed, and I was literally allowed to start talking to people from that point onwards, we kind of expected that we'd go out, start chatting, we'd have our regional hui, and we'd be out community working with groups within a month or so. But what I found when I first started talking and going out and presenting across Waitaha is that it is a wonderfully complex, varied space, all the way from the mountains to sea. Everyone is busy, everyone is doing lots of things, but there seems to be a bit of a gap in coordination between everyone that's going on there. So instead, our regional hui, we pushed all the way back, and we ended up doing that in September. So I spent the time from there up until then, up and down the country, chatting to lots of different people, lots and lots of cups of teas, doing lots of presentations, just getting to know what was going on in that region. So when we hosted our hui, we were able to invite a huge variety of people along, lots of different perspectives, which helped us paint a picture as to what the state currently was within Waitaha. We used that hui instead of just for our own use to work out where we could support, but actually provide an avenue for all of those who came along to work out where they could support, including a New Zealand Landcare Trust, ECAN, district councils, we had zone committee members there, we had industry, and we also had iwi and hapu along. From there, we then had to produce our regional needs assessment. So this is where we took all of the conversations we'd had, all of those things. We sat down with our working group, which was made up of ECAN, MFE and New Zealand Landcare Trust, to talk about what we had worked out, and then we produced our regional needs assessment, and this is where we then stated who we were hoping to support. Now, this is a fluid document, and we have learned quite quickly that it definitely does need to continue to be fluid. It's who we've said we could support at the time. This is where the gaps and things were and where we wanted to go. But that has ebbed and flowed and changed as we've gone along. And MFE are very, I was going to say surprisingly, welcoming, but very, very happy for us to change where our support needs to go depending on where the gaps are. So once that was signed off, we were then able to go out and start engaging with groups, and that was signed off in November last year. So we produced our regional HOE report, and this was sent out to all those who came and offered to be sent out beyond that. If anyone here hasn't received that and they would like a copy of that, please let me know. I'm happy to share that. We had an amazing day, and it was so great to have so many people down. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, you've got representative from the, oh, they've changed their name, but they were the South Canterbury Catchment Collective. Name's completely gone from me. Member from the Orpoho Heathcote River Network, one of our coordinators, and someone from DOC, all there, post-it notes all over a thing. Here's a gap, here's a thing where we could go in, this is a place that needs support, this place doesn't need support, this we should go and do that, and we ended up with these amazing maps with all the gaps and all the support in that space. Fantastic, so once it came from there, we then started working out what that could support could actually look like on the ground with those community groups and those catchment groups. We looked at what we were strong at, what we were able to do, and what the gaps our community and our organisation could go in and deliver. One of those key ones being those school programs. So we've expanded our our Nature Agents program more into Waimakariri. We're running those down in Ahuriri and in Amarama soon. We're also going to be running those up in Kaikoura. We've got our community engagements. We're doing stream walks, freshwater monitoring training, eDNA sampling, fish experience monitoring support, and the focused catchment map series. 2 have been done to date, one being Hakataramia and the other one being Ahuriri, which we presented down recently. And exciting things have already come from those 2 map series. So the key thing with EOS Ecology is that we are a freshwater ecology company. Our expertise is within ecology, it is within freshwater, and we're being able to use this to take that understanding and that expertise out to the groups that we're supporting. We're helping groups build and develop their monitoring plan. Courtney is working really closely with the group over on the Banks Peninsula and helping them create and develop a personalised monitoring plan that utilises freshwater and groundwater using her expertise. And we're working very closely with regions in that area to do that. We're looking to help create a freshwater monitoring plan for the group we're supporting in Burke's Pass. They're an amazing, beautiful community that have been doing their own plantings in that area, and they're really keen to do some baseline surveys, so we're going to help them create a monitoring plan that suits them. And the key thing is also helping groups to actually identify the best actions and the most bang for buck sort of things that they could be doing next. You hear quite often of groups, we should be doing monitoring, or we should just be doing this, and they'll try and grab and do everything. Whereas we're coming in and again, if groups want it, if the gap's there and the support is needed, helping them understand what they could be focusing on, what they would be the best thing for them to be looking at right now. And this work is happening really closely with Ahuriri, when we're now helping them identify the great things that are happening in their region, like especially 3 species of non-migratory fish that they've got in their area that we're getting them to celebrate and kind of share what's going on a bit more there. So this is just a little bit of a, a little bit of visual of some of the things we're doing. We recently ran a community day down in Te Moana. It was absolutely fantastic. Ran alongside the community group that was there in partnership with Collective, with ECAN, a few other members were along to that, and it was really strongly led by the farmers who want to form a catchment group. I've actually brought some leaflets from that event with me as well today. And they just want to get people excited about the water, they want people to care about it, and they want to hopefully form a community group from there. So what we did is our team came down, we were going to do some fish nets the day before, but that was when that big storm and the water and the rain and everything came through, which of course they were really happy about because of all the droughts, but it meant that we couldn't put our nets down because it would all get washed away. So we went down and we did invertebrate samples. We had kids down looking at all the inverts that they could find in there. We were catching fish and showing people what they could find and just getting the excitement going on there. We've also been working very closely with Onuku over in Akaroa. They've got a big focus that they want to create a full catchment plan for the whole of Akaroa Harbour. So we've been working with them and we're creating our map series for the whole of Akaroa Harbour to help them in doing that. And we've started engaging with each of the community groups around there. And we continue to work with them through their upcoming climate-focused wildlanders that they're going to be doing. Yes, it's just a couple of the cool things that we're currently doing. And actually, if you go back one, we'll leave it on that one. You don't need to see my face just yet. It's here. So you were all, Murray sent out the update email that I sent out to all of the everyone that we've spoken to today, and that really summarises where we've got to so far. I didn't want to bombard everyone with a gigantic list. I've got spreadsheets coming out that give all the stuff that we've been up to so far. But the key things I wanted to talk to you today is how we're engaging and working within the North Canterbury region, and specifically supporting the Waimakariri Land Care Trust. So we were really excited when we started chatting with Erin, probably the second month that I started to, engaging out in that area. We wanted to understand within North Canterbury where there were gaps and where we can actually go in and make a difference and where we can actually support. And we've been talking really closely with Erin as to what that could look like and what direction that could really go in. And the key next step that's coming up is the production of the Waimakariri focused catchment map series that we're doing. We're doing the lower half of the Waimakariri. There was lots of debates when it came to creating this map. We want these to be a catchment focus, and obviously the Waimakariri is huge. We wouldn't have been able to do one for the whole Waimakariri, so we are just doing the lower half. And the plan here is that with that map series being presented, the Waimakariri Land Care Trust is going to invite as many people as they can possibly fit into one room, and we're going to present the map series and use that as the starting point to see where the community would like to go and what support we could offer in that space. And the reason why we wanted to work so closely with the Waimakariri Land Care Trust is because there's such a good umbrella and connection to all of the communities that are out there. There's so much work going on in the space. You don't need us coming in and forming a collective or forming a catchment group. All we can do is come along and partner with a group like this, see where there are gaps that we can support and be guided by the group and see in what direction that goes in. So that map series is currently in process. It is being created. I have spent every day going over to our GIS team going, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? And once it's finished, it'll be sent over to the design team. And the hope is for us to be presenting that towards the end of May, beginning of June. We'll be clarifying some dates up and coming and soon. Erin, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I guess at this stage, depending on when the presentation for the map series occurs, we were maybe going to look at combining it with a drop-in session to bring along the water samples, just to do a test with the portable nitrate sensor and have that available. So it's sort of two-pronged attack. Might get more people coming along to the presentation and providing their feedback on what they hear and where they'd like to go.
And the great thing that I like about the map series is that it's a resource that you then get to keep. Each community group gets 2 bound copies of these. We've actually recently had a meeting with Fonterra, and we've got some meetings coming up with Derry and Zed and a few of the other places, and they're really keen to have these as a resource that's available beyond just those catchment groups. And they actually asked if they could just have a couple to put up in their shops or have them up. I think someone just asked, can I have a copy just to have on my desk because it looks nice. Ideally it gets used for a little bit more than that. But the community group gets this resource, they get a PDF version of it. Before the map series is presented, our coordinators sit down for 2-hour workshops with our principal science team to talk through their understanding of what they've learned within that map series. And then we bring along at least one of these senior scientists along with us to that presentation. We put it out as a little bit of a talk through as to how to use the resource. Then the workshop is all of the posters up on the wall, and we allow everyone the opportunity to walk around, have a look, formulate their own questions, and then that meeting is then guided by the questions that people have there and then in that space. And once that's been presented, we then hope to work with that group, whatever this has helped them with. But yeah, for an example, the Hakateramia, one of the groups we work with down there, they're now using the resource that they have adapted their plan, and they've now chosen specific sites working with the farmers as to where they want to do a wetlands, and also a couple of key spots where they want to do some more monitoring and do some community engagement. So it's a great starting resource, and it's available to all community groups that we work with, but they don't have to use it. It's not forced on them. If they're not interested, then that's also completely fine. We will be producing this for the Jed River catchment group, which we've been working, so Jed River catchment, that map series will be presented to them soon, and we're also producing one of these up in Kaikoura. We're supporting Kaikoura in the same sort of way that we're supporting the Waimakariri Land Care Trust. is that we're using that as the umbrella to reach out to as many people as possible. They don't need us to come in and do a community group. What they do need is someone to come along and build that hike with fresh water. But yeah.
And I have also asked if there's resource available to do another series for the Lower Ashley as well.
I was going to say, when you say it's the lower Waimakariri, what does that actually cover?
It's like the Waimakariri Plains,
Oh, okay.
Oxford down basically. A little bit of Lees Valley.
So it doesn't cover the Ashley River?
No, it doesn't. It cuts just under. Which is why
Okay,
I
so it's
asked.
pretty much the Waimakariri catchment.
Yep. Yeah, very close to that.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So I've asked if one of the other groups do not want to use their map series, if we can get that for the Ashley as well.
We within Canterbury will be using, we've been allocated, I guess, 15 maps, and because I've got the team in the office, I'm going to push to use it as much as possible. So yeah, if we can make it happen, we will make it happen.
So can you give us a quick overview of what the map series covers?
I could give you a copy. I've actually brought with me, and I'm happy to send these resources through to yourselves afterwards. But we've got a booklet which talks through what the Focus Catchment Map series is and what's included in it. But just a quick summary. So it's broken down into 6 sections. The first, and the map series is meant to be read as a book. So it is both pages. I'll just pick one at random. Please be a good one. As such, so you use it as a 2-page spread. So it is the same layout across the whole of the country. It is using national data sets. It doesn't delve down into the small nitty-gritty. It's at a catchment level. It's not at a landowner's perspective. So it is slightly limited because we need this to be a resource that can be used across the whole of the country. So it is split into those 6 sections. The first one being the parent catchment, so within that smaller catchment, the whole catchment that feeds into it. Then we look at the individual focus catchments, and that's broken into climate, topography, geology, land cover class, and graded river systems, if there is one in there. Next is the land management aspects, so that's vegetation, both past and present. That's actually one of my favourite maps because I like seeing the 2 parallels between the 2. Soil type, soil drainage, threatened environments and protected areas. Next, it looks at water quality data, so this is when we start looking at regional levels of data as opposed to national. And that's suspended sediment, nitrates and E. coli, and that's broken down into further categories. Then it looks at ecological data, so it's split into macroinvertebrates, fish diversity, fish passage, migratory fish, and whitebait species. And then the final one is connection to the coast, so that's looking at all coastal features, suspended sediment, nitrates, and into E. coli again into that space. It's a big beastie document, but the good thing about it is that you don't need to use the whole document in one go. If you are wanting to know, right, I want to understand what data is currently out there for our macroinvertebrates, and go to that section and look at that spread and get a good understanding of it. If you're wanting to understand what the known soil types are, for example, a region of area in Ahuriri, they've got really high phosphorus levels and they're getting pulled up on it. But the soil type is high in phosphorus naturally, so they shouldn't be focusing their attention on doing specific phosphorus monitoring on there because they can't make enough, they can't make a difference, they can look to another region. So there's many ways for it to be used, and I don't want to present it to a group and tell them what they then need to do it. It's kind of a tool for them to use to go into the next steps. But I'm happy to share this resource with yourselves. And alongside Erin, when the map series is ready, I will then want to share that beyond that.
Does anyone have any questions for Jess? Yeah, Claire?
Thanks, Jess, for coming along and presenting. I must say I'm quite impressed because I think the first time I heard you, I was really a bit sceptical, I guess, around what you could do. So I'm glad to hear that you sort of did sort of go a little bit off the original plan and look for gaps, so that's really pleasing. Just with regards to funding, how long have you got funding for? I mean, catchment groups are a big thing, and we know that ground lead, on the ground, ground lead stuff is the way to get action. And so we've got to encourage our catchment groups, but of course, financial stress that they get put under, or they're under constraints for facilitators and coordinators like yourself. So we've got to somehow solve that problem. So how long have you got funding for?
So the Y Connection project is only funded until June 2025, which originally when the project was due to start took a long time for it to finally be signed, and they didn't extend the deadline once it was finally able to go, so we've had a really restricted time frame. So yeah, we are only funded until June 2025, which is why my key focus is we're not here to do anyone's job for them. We want to, in the time that we've got, we want to come in and see what knowledge capabilities can we build, what learning can we help, what tools can we give people, how much can we get out and support people between now and when that funding finishes. And honestly, we want the groups that we're supporting to just utilise us, use us as much as they can, which is why we have really focused on these community days, these education days, these, if a group wants to do freshwater monitoring, right, can we come out, what community-based monitoring can we help teach you to be able to do? And we've been working really closely with Juliet Mills is creating a community-based monitoring framework, which has been quality assured, which means that we can then work with the group and go, right, you want to do this training, this is the type of training this is the type of monitoring that will be acknowledged and will be recognised. These are the pathways you need to do this. So, we're working, and we really want to build the community group's capability so that if we don't get continued funding, we're not left anyone in the lurch.
With regard to that citizen science, because I think that's what you're really talking about here.
Yeah.
Is that actually being aligned with regional councils that you're actually working with? I think that's important.
Yeah, we're working really closely with ECAN anyway. In fact, Corney's got a workshop coming up soon with the science team because she's got a few groups that want to do some additional monitoring and they want to make sure it's alongside what they're doing. And that framework has been created alongside regional councils across the country and alongside NIWA. So yeah, that's the key focus, is it's got what's the point of going out and doing monitoring if no one's going to accept it? And a really cool thing that I really like within this framework is if you're just wanting to do monitoring for community engagement, there's a really cool symbol that's like, yes, this will work for community engagement. If you're going to the point where the monitoring you want to use for a legal perspective, it tells you which one you should do and how you should go about it. So depending on what that group's focus is, we can guide them as to the best one to do.
Tim.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I did attend the Dunsandel one. I recognise the back of my own well, I can see there. But nonetheless, I'm really interested in the alignment with ECAN because in a different process around this table and also within WDC, we've had some debate about the merits of a increased rating component for ECAN to gather data and to consolidate the data sets from different organisations. And I've got some reservations about that, about the effectiveness of that. But yet, it seems to me, my personal opinion is that you're out there doing it. You're absolutely doing it on a local basis. You're supporting local catchment groups. You're creating a national-based platform to do this sort of work, but supporting local catchment groups. So I won't ask you to criticise a valuing partner, but what sort of complementarity have you got, say, with ECAN, the work they're doing, gathering data and community engagement? You're doing a lot of work without a rating base, aren't you?
It's interesting. Yeah, we're working closely with ECAN, but very openly. Any group we're working with, they're aware of however that relationship is. We work closely with ECAN specifically for when we are creating the Focus Catchment Map series. obviously with the catchment context that's due to be coming out to be rolled across other regions, what that ends up looking like here is a document that they need to produce. So we worked alongside them with that. In regards to data and things that are being collected, it's so different with every group that we speak to. Like a really good example is how we're working with Hariri. They've been collecting data for over 10 years and they've wanted to present, they wanted to have a way to present it, and they wanted ECAN to kind of do that for them, and they haven't been able to do it. And now we're going to be supporting them to present that data. We are going to be utilising access to experts, because to produce a report for 10 years worth of water quality data is not a cheap feat, so we need some additional support in that space.
So and just as an example of Hariri, so you're seeing a catchment group that's got a strong desire to do this work for themselves, to present to a regional council.
And they want other people to see their data.
Yeah.
They're advocating for people need to see, what's the point in us collecting it all this time if no one's going to see that? So they want people to see it. And there's a real mix, and I understand the two different, I understand those who are like, I don't want my data to be shared. I understand the reasons and things behind that. But those who do want to, we want to be able to provide them an avenue where they can do. And some of them are really happy to have their data placed alongside ECAN's data, and like, this is what they've got, this is what we've got, right, what does this tell us? So there's a bit of there's a mix.
So on that same train of thought, how do you work with New Zealand Land Care Trust?
So we work really closely with Tracy. Most people I assume knows Tracy. So New Zealand Land Care Trust will also, they've received some funding through the Essential Fresh Water. They received 2 streams of funding. So you've got the one I think they are the ACE training modules, which I'm not sure if anyone. They're running these amazing workshops which are for community and catchment groups. There's one, it's an ACE training access. No, I'm trying to remember what it means. No, it's gone. So they run 2 big workshops, and then those communities, from there, we're then working with Tracy to go out and do more support for the community groups around there. Tracy is part of our working group. My first presentation was at Dunsandel at New Zealand Land Care Trust's event. We work, Tracy, some of the groups that Tracy is supporting, she's pulled us in at the right time to come in and support them. The other group we're working with, Whaley, were out in the Banks Peninsula. We were told by about 5 or 6 different entities that we needed to go and support this group. So we started conversations, and then Tracy was like, and then she got pulled in to support them, and she was like, actually, they need everyone to back off. So they've got some time to establish, and we were like, awesome. So we just took a step back, and then she called us back in, and now we're working really closely with that group to help them develop freshwater monitoring. So very closely, we have regular phone conversations, and she pops around and asks for a cup of tea quite often. We've actually got a better relationship with New Zealand Land Care Trust than the majority of the other regions. I don't know why that is, but yeah, we work very closely with them.
Sounds good. So I'm just going to be purely selfish here and ask you about, because we have a small group called the Sefton Saltwater Creek Catchment Group.
Got details about you.
And so I just want to know what you can do for us, really. So I guess, the things that I'm always looking for ideas for is around speakers, ideas for workshops, for field trips, for meetings, that kind of thing. And then there's also this thought that we've had about should we be doing a catchment management plan, but that's a big thing which probably needs something like that to support it. And so we talk about it, but we don't really have any clue how to go about it. And I wish you were around 3 years ago, because it would have saved me doing a lot of work that I need to do. But yeah, so how can you help a group like ours, for example?
Cheers. Be back in a minute.
I have got your group listed on my big list of handover from Kate. I believe she's spoken to you before. Yeah. And the way we're supporting Waimakariri and the Waimakariri Land Care Trust is,
yeah, the Waimakariri Land Care Trust hold our funding because we're an informal group.
Yeah. So realistically, it's the things that we've just listed, those community days, those engagement days. I know that I believe from Kate's handover to me that she said that you were looking for speakers and you're wanting support with events and things like that. So I guess all of those, yes. I think what would be great is once the map series has been presented for the Land Care Trust, and we've had a chance to look at that, to start looking at where the gaps are and what we could be supporting you in. But Briar, who's over here, once she's had a little chance to settle in, will be reconnecting with everyone who was on Kate's list, and kind of seeing where the gaps are and what we could support you with. What would be the key things that I know you said like speakers and events.
Well, I mean, we've sort of had 3 years of doing things and we've covered quite a lot in that time, and it's kind of almost like where to next for us. So just, we probably do need to talk about it as another opportunity. It's a bit disappointing to hear that we're not going to have access to those maps though, although we do have a lot of maps anyway, but
There is talks with a few different organisations. There is hope that we can get funding for the map series to be produced. Our hope, and from the conversations, is that we're aiming for the whole of Canterbury. The Y Connection, the funding through that has for 15 maps within Waitaha. That's what we've currently got funding for. But we are in talks, and there is interest. There's definitely industry interest as well to get these funded for all catchments within the region.
Oh, it would be good to see them and to get a feel for what they could offer a group like ours. Cool, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Jess? No, thank you. Oh, thanks very much for that. That was really interesting. So we've got a recommendation that the Zone Committee receives this update for its information and with consideration to the committee's CWMS action plan priorities. Do we have a mover? Yeah. And a seconder? Yeah. The Clears. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
On the last page of the slides, my contact details. Sorry for the terrifying picture of my face.
Thanks a lot, Jessie.
No worries.
Right, moving on to agenda item 3.3, the Te Tiriti training presentation. I will hand over to Ruby Gill-Clifford, our youth representative for this item.
I've got the PDF here, but I've got both. What would you prefer?
Either one, but if it is a PDF, I'm have to open the YouTube video.
Why don't I go to PowerPoint? Do you want to?
I can open it. If you trust me.
I do. It's right hands.
I won't smash it or anything. So, kia ora everybody. This is a presentation that I put together a little bit after the Te Tiriti training that I went to in Taitapu way back in October last year, so it's been a little while. But I just figured, seeing as it was a two-day workshop with a lot of content, and I know a lot of people couldn't make it because that's quite a big commitment, I would just share a little bit of what I learned. It's kind of hard to like convey the exact feeling that you get when you do these sorts of trainings, but I thought I'd just give you some information, the stuff that I learned while I was there in the 2 days, and then if anyone has any questions or wants to have a discussion about anything, feel free to ask me
like during the presentation, or we can talk after. I don't mind. And I'll let you know, at the training there was a split of ECAN staff members and zone committee members. So there were like people who write plans and farmers and things like that all in the same room, which was really cool to see. The discussions were quite varied with some different perspectives and stuff like that, so that was pretty cool. And in the background is an ake that I put on iNaturalist. That is also, unfortunately, the only picture that I took of the whole 2 days. So I don't have any like nice pictures of discussions or anything like that. So yeah. So I thought I'd just go through some of the background information that we were given. So I'll do some information for the whole treaty and then Canterbury in particular. So for the whole treaty, 3 points, just to give you some context. The first one is at the top, I've put contra preferentum, which some of you may have heard of, but it's a part of international law. That means when a treaty is signed with a foreign power and an Indigenous people, and it's written in both languages, preference is given to the Indigenous language. And so in this case, Te Tiriti o Waitangi versus the treaty, preference would be given to Te Tiriti o Waitangi rather than the Treaty of Waitangi. And also in the signing of the treaty, 500 chiefs signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and then 39 chiefs signed the Treaty of Waitangi, and it was likely that it was read to them as in the Te Reo version, and then they signed the English version. And lastly, another point for context is that this is one of our founding documents, and it is a bicultural document, and is something that we should honour today. And yeah, just to consider that our founding document is indeed bicultural. So if you like, I'll give you just a second to read through the articles. I'm sure you all would have seen them in some form, but the bold is just some of the differences between the two. Does anybody have any questions about any of the articles or anything like that? Otherwise I'll keep tracking. And so some information for Waitaha in particular. So this is actually national, but I think it's still pretty interesting. During the early 1800s, there was approximately 200,000 Māori and 2,000 Pākehā. So that's just to say that for especially those first few years of relationships, Pākehā were really here on the goodwill of Māori, and Māori were obviously trying to embrace the new world and see what opportunities there were. And so that's kind of the power balance, I suppose you could call it, when the treaty was being dreamt up and then signed, which I think is, yeah, I found that number quite surprising because for some reason you don't really expect it to be around that way, but yeah. And then another piece of information, the Ngāi Tahu deeds, which I'm sure you all would have heard of as well, but just to remind you, they were the 10 purchases made in Kaitahu Whenua over 20 years, and then Kempstead, of course, was the biggest one in 1848. Where 1/10 of each sales land was to be set aside as reserves for tangata kaitahu, including the preservation of the ability to still harvest mahika kai. And then, of course, not honouring this promise would become the main grievance in the kaitahu claim. And then this other piece that I've got down here called take tuku whenua. It was proven to be the concept that all land purchases were made under. And so it's the idea that when Pākehā people acquired land from Māori through purchase, it was the right to land in the form of a gift, and in that if you acquire land, you then need to uphold the mana of the donor through how you use the land, which I think is, a pretty interesting thing to think about if you consider all the land that is now in Pākehā hands that needs to be able to uphold the mana of the person who originally gifted the land. Is there another slide in the page?
I do.
Can I look at
Yes, it should be there too. There we go.
Sorry, there was another slide that I thought would be in the presentation, but might not be. Where is it? Would you be able to? I could just read off. That was like, yeah, but also might be. And then, so I actually got some information from Arapata as well, which was very generous of him, about some context for kaituāhuriri in particular. He said that it is clear that Rangatira had the wisdom back then to realise that to not only survive in this new world but to flourish, they required education for the young, healthcare for the elderly, access to food producing lands and sufficient lands to live upon for eternity. And so kaituāhuriri chiefs asked that all the lands between the Rakahuri and the waimakariri, from the mountains to the sea, be set aside for kaituāhuriri whānau, which is where we are currently, and is quite a large piece of land. And then the land that they received was a block called Māori Reserve 873 that was roughly 1,068 hectares, which is about 4 hectares per person. And today some of these blocks have 400 to 600 owners, which is clearly insufficient lands for all generations, for all future generations. And then, bearing that in mind, here is a video of Māori land loss over time. I urge you to watch this with an open mind and just absorb it as best you can. Just speed it up a little bit if I can. So that is a little bit of history about Māori land loss over time you can probably see that majority of the South Island, the land wasn't confiscated but was purchased through sort of dodgy dealings such as Kemp's Deed. And just after that video, I thought I'd share some quotes that we heard during the training, which I really enjoyed. The first one is, while only one side remembers the suffering of the past, dialogue will always be difficult. One side commences the dialogue with anger and the other side has no idea why. And the second one, the dominant group always bears the greatest responsibility to change the inequitable relationships. So after all that information, I kind of hoped that that was like a small snapshot into the history of the treaty that we got. And then, yeah, I thought I'd just share how it made me feel on the day. And so at first I found it confronting. It's clear that my ancestors caused a lot of harm to Māori people, and this continues to have effects on Māori today. But for me, I think it is important to be aware of the history, but not so that you feel incredibly guilty, but so you can act from a position of knowledge. I think there are many big and small actions that we can take as Pākehā to honour the treaty, and we have complete power over that. And the big thing that we learnt during the training was to apply Te Tiriti, pay careful attention to relationships above all else, which is something that we can do right now. And as I said, it can be really big or really small, and I found that to be quite positive and empowering. And then this is what the group responded with when asked why respond to Te Tiriti or Waitangi today. So as I said, this is people who look at policy, write plans, farmers, etc. So because we're legally required to, morally it's the right thing to do to get better environmental and social outcomes, to be an example, to lead, to be better equipped or prepared for relationships with hapu, to understand our history and connection to land, to create solidarity and unity, to address the past, to educate us all and build capability, and to be honourable tangata tiriti. So some main takeaways from the training. As I said, the big thing that was really pushed was to apply Te Tiriti, pay careful attention to relationships above all else. And then some other things were to be a tangata tiriti or a person of the treaty, think about what work Pākehā can do to be treaty partners without Māori leading it or in the room, to open space for Māori when they do have the capacity. And that was discussed in response to the whole thing of reduced Māori capacity as requirements for consultation increase. And then the last one I really enjoyed, we talked about te kupu Pākehā as a gift, so the word Pākehā as a gift. You are not Pākehā anywhere else in the world, and so that's kind of a term that can connect you to New Zealand, to Aotearoa, and with that comes a certain responsibility, which I really liked as well. And then if there's any questions, I'd love to hear them, but also I would just like to ask you all how it makes you feel. You don't have to like offer a huge explanation, but I am very interested to see how that all makes you feel. Any, like, it could be 2 words, if you have anything to say.
Since I've done two treaty trainings, I agree. You learn so much about our history that you don't know when we're taught. So that was one of the overwhelming things. The other overwhelming thing, and both of them, and mine have been 3 years apart, is how guilty I felt. I think everybody feels guilty. What I have done, and what I've taken out of it, is I've gone and done a lot of reading of history books of different writers, and it's painful to read how some of the Māori were treated over the years, around the vote, around the land. And that's why I think I feel guilty. But I mean, I guess I've been in this as a local government regional council that's very much into being a treaty partner of excellence. So I understand it, but it's just confused me even more because I read a whole lot of writings and a whole lot of history, and different views will come from different sides, and some of them are even Maori writers, and they have a different perspective on history. And I was just looking at your culture pro Fair and Tim view, and I'm thinking, well, we never actually heard that, and there was actually an alternative view on the internet. So you know, one of the things I would like to see, and did Hannah give it to you? Was she your presenter, her or Cheryl?
Cheryl.
Yeah. So I've done one with each of them. So it's quite, and they were a little bit different, but that's really interesting, and I would encourage anybody to participate in the treaty training. I think it is just a real eye-opener for history.
Any other comments from anybody?
I'd like to say something.
No?
Go ahead. Yep.
Thanks, really, that's really interesting. I haven't done this treaty training, but I did some through the university when I started, and I think very much like Claire, I felt really guilty, but I think the word confronting that you used is particularly useful, because that's how it makes me feel, conflicted, confronted. I read a book called Healing Our History, which made a difference to the way that I sort of understood it. And people kept saying feeling guilty isn't that helpful, but actually it was the way I felt. So I kind of allowed myself to feel like that. And very much like Claire, by reading and finding out more about our history, I've come to terms with being conflicted, but hopeful that we can build better relationships in future. And that's where I'm sitting at the moment, is more hopeful than conflicted. So we'll see in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, that's really thought-provoking, and one of the things I took from one of your opening comments there, you talked about a bicultural relationship. I just made me realise that actually I tend to think in terms of the treaty as a transactional thing in terms of ethnicity. You know, bicultural means Pākehā and Māori, but actually I think, if I understood it right, you're talking about actually a cultural understanding. It literally is two cultures, two ways of understanding. And there's the obligation then to understand the other way, the other person's way of thinking. You can't collectively sum everyone up. That's so that's really useful to me, and they're just sort of tweaking my thinking. It's not a contract or an agreement. Actually, it's a way of looking at the way someone else thinks. So thank you for that. And also fair degree of that feeling that colleagues have expressed there. I've done a Māori family history. I've written a lot about I suppose you call Pākehā settlement in North Canterbury, and I've also become very conscious that Waitāha's history particularly didn't start at 1850. I make a point of that in my book writing, because it's just so easy to start with that kind of narrative and sort of have Maturiri and Waitāha's sort of narrative just sort of sitting there in the chapter at the back. So I keep on reminding myself of that. It's a nice storytelling. Thank you.
Oh, that's some good perspectives. And does anyone from the floor want to make any comment? The depleted floor. Marek.
Just open the phone there. Just to highlight to you all that the training that Ruby has just so ably described, the next session for Zone Committee members is coming up on the 11th and 12th of June in Kaikoura, so at Takahanganarai. So if anyone's interested in doing that training on the back of that presentation, 11th and 12th of June is the next opportunity. So yeah, feel free to let me know if you'd like to be included in that, and I can obviously arrange that.
Yeah, by the look of it, would like to.
Great.
Is there another one later on in the year?
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage.
We organised that. That's the third training that we organised with Sharon, and so it's not to say that there won't be more, but it's just the third of the sequence that we set up. So I'll certainly let you know if there are further training sessions, but that's the next one. it's not too far away. I should note too, just thinking of Healing Our History, kind of co-written by Robert Considine and who's now passed, and our former rangatira, who's also passed, Peter Ramsden, made me go to one of those sessions while Robert was still presenting them. He said that this will be pretty special, as Ruby's, and it was. But they did highlight, they said how New Zealand's changing, notwithstanding how sobering some of this is, that when Robert started and Peter was there alongside him, they had death threats in the early 80s when they started doing. They said it was incredibly confronting when they first started doing this sort of training, and that it was often in a context of hostility, and sometimes actual death threats were put to them in the early 80s. So he said, and that's why Peter went on to acknowledge what Robert had contributed in terms of learning more broadly, for New Zealanders, if you like, to just over decades to keep working at this and making this more of a mainstream opportunity for people to learn about our country. So, but yeah, it was a very tough beginning for them when they first started.
If I can just go, the Healing Our History was the first one I read as well, and it's a fantastic book. It's quite easy to read as well. So it is engaging. So anybody who wants to start, it's a good one to start.
Awesome, thank you very much, Ruby, for bringing that to us. It's been very insightful.
No worries, thank you all for listening. And as I said, if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me an email or anything like that. And I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and feelings as well.
Cool. Right, we have a recommendation that the Zone Committee receives this update for its information. We have a mover. Martha, and seconder, Erin. All those in favour? Aye. Against? None. Motion carried. Right, moving on to agenda item number 4, committee updates. Working group updates. Martha, I'll hand over to you for the biodiversity working group.
Thanks, Caroline. So the biodiversity working group has just successfully, thank you very much, applied for action plan funding to run the second year of the Zone Committee Environmental Awards in North Canterbury. So this allows us as a committee to acknowledge and celebrate environmental champions within our district. We'd like to thank ECAN and WDC for support with comms and logistics. And we're also looking forward to collaborating with the monitoring group and Land Care Trust with some frequent nitrate monitoring for people within the zone this year, but timing around that has yet to be discussed. And the awards will be ongoing and probably to be presented around September, October this year. So that's about us for now, but we'll keep you updated.
Awesome. Any questions for Martha?
No, but I have extra information for Martha.
Excellent. Go for it.
If you would like them to be held in conjunction with the Community Services Awards, then it's 10th of October.
Great.
And the mayor was okay with that occurring.
Yes.
And they'll be in contact at some point.
Amazing. That's exactly the kind of information that we like. Thank you very much. That's great.
Awesome. Any questions down the back? No? Right, moving on to the Lifestyle Block Working Group, which I can update. So the top 10 tips leaflet has been distributed to a number of outlets, including some of the rural real estate companies, and it was quite well received. Probably need to continue trying to get them out wider. The Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust ran an Unlocking Nature on Your Land workshop back in March, which included a slot for the top 10 tips. And there was also a section on biodiversity, pest control, weed control. There was another one I thought, but I couldn't think of it at the time. And each speaker spoke for about half an hour or so. And I thought it was a really good combination of topics. And the audience, there's probably 25 or 30 people. We got really good feedback from them about what they thought of it. And Kate from Y-Connect attended that and got quite enthusiastic about running some lifestyle-focused workshops. So now that Brian has started, that might be something that she will pursue on sort of with utilising the top 10 tips. Yeah, so hopefully we'll hear from Briar at some point. So any other questions about lifestyle?
Murray, has that resource been passed on to the other zone committees to have a similar lifestyle? So I'm guessing Selwyn is actually
Selwyn has. Selwyn's requested it, and it's been built. The website's actually been made, if you like at the Farmers Hub. Now that it was Waimakariri specific initially because it was exactly that, and now it's been built into more of a generic region-wide, which is, I think, an acknowledgement that what had been developed here was actually of use and would be of further demand around the region. So Selwyn certainly has asked for it specifically as well.
Awesome. Oh, well, you can continue on, Erin, with the monitoring working group.
Yes, so as we just heard from My Connection, there's that map series. Once it's complete, we'll set a date and advertise it for the public to come along and hear the presentation and then provide feedback and ideas where they'd like to focus. In terms of the work that was done collating the existing water monitoring, I should hopefully have a final of the memo that has been prepared by ACLINC in the next couple of months, ideally by the end of May. I'm just waiting on final times from that. And we're just in conversation with ECAM about some work that they would like to do up in the Oxford area and looking at how we can support them and getting some final arrangements for that.
Yeah. And did you have an update as to where we were at with the nitrates testing?
Yes, so that's what I would like to do is to combine that with the presentation of the map series. So then sort of just pull more people into the event. So timing of that will depend on when those maps are ready. So maybe end of May, early June, potentially. And if it goes too far into the beginning of calving, then you're probably looking at more late September or early October.
So did you decide what you were going to do about, were you going to hire a nitrates tester for a week, or what did you decide to do around there?
So I've got budget there to hire a nitrate sensor. I think I've probably got a month's worth of budget, so it's whether how you want to work it. I guess if you're going to go to multiple places, or if you just hold 2 events in short succession, then you could hire it for a shorter time and then rehire it again at a later date.
Yeah.
So there's flexibility there if you wanted to have the sensor up in your catchment. Yeah, for a day.
I mean, I think so. If I just want to understand that. So you're leading that, Erin, and you're not expecting anything. You're just going to let us know what you're planning to do with it, or are you looking for more involvement from everyone else?
I would appreciate any involvement that anyone would like to have. So Martha and I are going to sit down and talk about data management and whether we actually do anything, collect the data, or just simply pass the numbers on to the people who are there, and what resources or what information both the regional council and the district council would like to be passed on to people if they had a high sample or if they just wanted more information in general.
Murray, you were going to say?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts on that, Erin. I mean, even thinking with the drop-in session, for those of you that turned up when we were at Mandeville, we did 200 samples with Tim Chambers in 2 hours. It's quite a lot of interest. So it might be that, I don't know, even one might overwhelm the other potentially as a topic. I don't know. It might be interesting. Maybe doing one drop-in session. Think that we might have a sensor for a month could be prior to the drop-in session to get a sense of demand might be worthwhile. But the other thought, what you're describing as an approach is similar to what OTOP did a while ago, probably 2 years ago, where I think it was either Greenpeace or someone was doing the testing, but we had Carl Hansen was there as an ECAM, so just to help explain what the reading was, and what that meant and what it didn't mean. And he quite enjoyed the day. So he wasn't there, wasn't ECAN doing the testing, and it wasn't, he was just there to help explain what it meant. And so that could be an option. I could just check in with our science team to see if a similar sort of approach was amenable to them and they had someone available like Carl. But from what I recall, he actually quite enjoyed that interface with the public because the testing was done by another party and he could just help explain what it meant and what it didn't mean.
I've got a question, Murray. When you did it last time, were people bringing 2 samples straight out of the well and after treatment, or were they just bringing 1 sample per person? You know?
There was a variety. I think most brought just 1 sample, but some brought multiple. So it was just a kind of I didn't turn up with
some people
from all
wouldn't know how good their treatment system was, would they? So ideally they should bring 2.
They should, but then are there that many people using the treatment system?
There are where I live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everybody has to.
So that's what
everybody's water's failing
yeah.
in the Tuahiwi area. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something to make clear in any advertising, isn't it?
Yeah.
To advise. I think from the Sefton area's perspective, we are reputedly low in nitrates, but I think it would be great to run, if we get the nitrates sensor and run a workshop up there. How would it work? Like you were saying, you were going to run the mapping thing alongside the testing. How does a presentation around something sit alongside testing? Do they work together or?
No, it's sort of more of people coming to listen to the presentation than we could be testing in the background for them, and then when they finish the presentation, we would say, here's your result.
Yeah.
So they had something to do, because I remember on the day, people were waiting quite some time.
So they would all come at one time for a particular start time,
yeah.
Drop their samples off, listen to the presentation and then pick them up again.
Yeah, that's my current thinking, but I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, well, I think that would be, I'd definitely be keen to do something with the catchment group up there for that. So add us onto your list. Claire?
I think we still need to be a little bit broader. I mean, I just take up John's comment about the water at Tuahiwi failing. I mean, what is it that's actually failing? Is it E. coli? Is it arsenic? Is it iron?
It's arsenic, iron, and E. coli.
Yeah. So that's totally different
from nitrates
to nitrates.
Yeah.
And quite often you tend to find if you get really high nitrates, you probably, if you test for E. coli, you may well have high E. coli as well. So I've said it before here, I think that we need to be very careful to make sure that you've got everybody in the room that can provide the answers and provide a broad spectrum, because you just can't look at just one attribute.
Is that part of what Carl could do? Like would Carl have a presentation that would be like half an hour long or an hour long that he would come and do?
People are not going to hang around for an hour-long presentation.
It's a great point you're making, Claire, but one of the things that will probably restrict us is if I can talk about the GW50 nitrate sensor, it's a nitrate sensor.
Yeah.
So
we don't want people going away thinking that their water's fine.
No.
But there's other issues.
But we can point out that the nitrates, as an increased or higher rate, so they should be getting full tests regularly, because people aren't.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's only when their neighbours tell them that theirs has failed and they've had to spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on water treatment that people are getting them checked.
Yeah. Well, is that something that you could talk to Carl about? Yeah, ask him what he'd be interested in doing if we put something like that.
Probably Murray's the best.
She's got stuff. She's got I'll follow up.
Oh,
Murray's the best.
Cool. So Murray should follow up with Carl.
It might not be Carl, but someone that could be interested. But I think Carl is a good example of where that kind of role of just being there to kind of educate, inform, seemed to work quite well.
So that's what I was meaning really when I was asking Kate, how can you help us out with putting things on with events? And if I know that we've got Carl to talk for half an hour, people could come and bring their samples and have them tested. well then I can possibly get another speaker or two speakers even to keep people entertained for an hour and a half, and then they pick up their samples and go home. But until you've got sort of the basis for a workshop, you can't build one until you've got something to base it on. So that would be really helpful if we knew that we could do something like that, and then it's just a matter of, okay, we've got this, make the date, tag everything onto it that we're going to.
Can I just encourage conversations with WDC, because I know that as part of our nitrate motion that's put on the table, my understanding was that there was some reticence around how they were involved, so just have that conversation.
Come to that, I'll just hold to my report.
Right, is that everything about that? That was everything for your one, Erin? Yep. Any other questions for Erin? No? Right, so moving on to the action plan review, which Murray is going to brief us on.
I am, and this shouldn't be exhaustive necessarily. It's largely an auditing exercise. As a level of service around the action plans that Environment Canterbury has is that each year the committees will at least check in and review the action plan. You've done that over the last 2 years, and you may recall you made a slight amendment last year at the May meeting. So I've included it again with that that updated version as we had as the A3 in the meeting papers. But mindful that this action plan goes through to 30 June, there's probably not a huge amount you'd want or need to change. But this is, I guess, an opportunity just to check in with you to see if there's anything either in relation to this action plan that you would think would be worthwhile changing, or anything you'd note should we move in and be repeating the process for the next long-term plan cycle. Is there anything that comes to mind that you think we should either carry through or introduce that we could note now and kind of add to the initial drafting of that action plan, or the carry through of this one?
Thanks, Murray. I mean, this is on the assumption, I guess, that zone committees are continuing next year. I mean, I sort of thought it would be good to have a session at a workshop on the action plan at some point, but probably later on when we know more about what our future is, rather than in the next couple of months. Just in terms of how well the plan is actually lining up with the applications that we've received over the last 3 years. For example, if we wanted to provide administrative funding to groups like the Oxford Dark Sky, then we possibly need to reword the action plan so that we're better able to line it up with applications like that. And that's just one example, there might be other things. So I kind of thought if we're going to do a review of any kind, we're better to leave it until we know we have a future, and then actually have, as part of a workshop, talk it through. If anyone else has got any thoughts? Yeah.
I'm happy to talk it through. I think that we should probably talk it through at a workshop, but I'd actually go back and look at the council's priorities and just make sure that we're aligning up with them, and perhaps develop some process about how we check in with the respective councils. So, Murray, that might be something that you can think about how we do that.
Absolutely, I think but what you've both touched on makes very good sense, in the sense once we know that yes, actually there's a need for an action plan, then as noted, I think the starting point would be to look at the long-term plans that have just been adopted, and then I guess confirming what sort of priorities may be set for committees or action plans, and the way that they did for this one. So no.
Cool. Any other comments on that one? No. Right, so moving on to the ECAN update, which Councillor Fiona.
Thank you. Just very quickly on page 104, 105 of the agenda, we've got a letter there from Andy Parish. Cleaning, Chief Planner. Around the RPS, I guess the important things just to note there is that on the 17th and the 24th of May, Te Rapaturia group is having a wānanga, so that's councillors and the chairs of the 10 Pakataka. So we haven't seen the draft document yet, but I understand that's pretty close, so we are likely to see that before we have this wānanga, of course. Then there was some direction from council, we'll have to come to council, and hopefully the intent at this stage is still going to go out in June and July. Well, it won't be June, might be late June. For Schedule 1 Course 3 consultation, so that's, we are specified to go to the ministers of the Crown and local authorities, and also we intend to go wider zone committees and key stakeholders to inform that draft process before it gets notified, and we're still thinking, the plan is still for the end of the year with regard to that. So, yeah, zone committees will be informed. The other one around upcoming council meetings, we've had just 4 days last week. We heard 180 odd people fronted. There was 190 people suggest they wanted to come in front of council. 180 odd fronted out of 1,300 submissions. 7,000 submission points, I think there was, that staff have waded through. So deliberations on that are the 22nd and 23rd. Tomorrow we're having a council meeting. Basically that's pretty much ticking off submissions that we've made in letters to government. So it's not anything super interesting there. And also on Wednesday we've got our Land and Water Committee, and I haven't got my laptop with me, but I think Mataranga Maori was one of the issues in this, a piece of work that's been developed as part of the CWMS targets. So that's taken quite a while to get to where we are, but we've got some sort of agreement. I think that's the key one. We've got an update on the recreational water quality, which other than cyanobacteria has been pretty good this year. Those are the two biggies, I think. Yeah. Unless you can prompt me for something else there, Murray.
Quickly jump to the website.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I've read it. A bit of last week I read the papers, so I'm dredging up what I actually read. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. Oh, you finished? Yeah, I've just got a question around how do any changes to the freshwater regulations affect the drafting of the regional policy statement?
Until the freshwater regulations are changed, they currently exist. So they've been considered in the current drafting, but staff assure us that there's enough flexibility there to align with the new direction that government may legislate.
Has anyone else got any questions for Claire? No. All right, moving on to the Waimakariri District Council updates, Tim.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, some of this ground's been covered, but I've circulated my report just an hour ago. I'll just jump straight into, happens to be the last point, but I think it's probably the most focus here, is the nitrates, as we were discussing earlier. Greenpeace event in Rangiora on the 21st of April needed about 250 attendees in which to test nitrate levels in their drinking water, and explained the way it was all brought together on the day. I should say, just for clarity, as portfolio holder for WDC, I did recommend that WDC not actively promote the day, just because we needed some surety that the information gathered not would be scientifically accurate, but also wouldn't be basically misrepresented by Greenpeace. I mean, it is a private environmental lobby group. and so we didn't want WDC's position to be misrepresented that way. But it is a key consideration for council, rising nitrate levels in some of our communities. There is some work that's going to come to WDC around whether there's, it will come to councillors as to whether we as councillors should support a review of the basically the minimum allowable values for nitrate as a concentration in the water supply. And so to that end, a report will likely come to the Waimakariri Water Zone Committee in July. This is probably from through Sophie Allen regarding the private well study results from the spring 2023 sampling round, which will also examine new research regarding nitrate effects on health. So yeah, there's so at a national level, yes, some consideration as to whether that's good enough just to accept the 5 milligram per litre nitrate nitrogen ratio, and also located just what is in water supplies. So I think that'll be very good work. A couple of other key projects quickly is Cannon River Enhancement Project. Sophie Allen says a comment to add to the progress of these projects and the report is that they have been delayed for implementation. WDC carried out a consultation with Ngāti Tuharuri following a request from Mahanui Kuratai Limited earlier this year. Some projects will happen in the next few months and a few now will be in 2024-25. And one fencing and planting project on private land has had the landowner pull out. It was a good consultation, separate item, a good consultation on the natural environment strategy. I've sat in some of the meetings myself. It's a high area of focus both in our LTP and around the council table. Yeah, there's a lot of debate going on in that area, so no lack of visibility for the natural environment strategy. Just another item, another key area of work, Aotearoa Te Awa, Cherish the River program. This program of work has had a restart following a period of inactivity. An increased scope of projects now includes beyond the Cam Ruatani Whātua River to the Lineside Road wetland area and scoping projects in the Hope Stream, Courtney Stream and elsewhere. I should note that we've got the long-term plan public hearings coming up for WDC, just starting tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then in a couple of weeks it'll come back to councillors for the debating period. So a lot of submissions, a lot of people wanting to be heard in public and in person, which is excellent to see. We'll just leave it at that now. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Tim. Any questions for Tim? No. Right, the last one in the updates is the action points from previous zone committee meetings, which I'll hand back over to Murray.
Thanks, Caroline. We've obviously got 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Yeah. We have arranged the Y Connection presentation to the committee, which we've had this afternoon from Jess. The other 2 items, which are long-standing items, in terms of the realignment of the Northbrook tributary and water quality sampling at Tutaipatu Lagoon. Sophie and I did have a chat about that, just to see if WDC had any information on that, and we clarified that it will be an ECAN matter. So that took me back to, in alignment with the second item around the Kaiapoi River salinity and the data logging that's been done there. As you may recall, I've kind of half answered that in the past in terms of Adrian Meredith's been able to confirm that the data logging is continuing, but that when I last was able to corner him and spend a few minutes with him, there hadn't been any analysis done. So, so unfortunately those 2 items still sit there for another meeting, in the sense that I will need to probably, in conjunction with my other action point with the ECAN science team, see if I can get a wee bit more confirmation on that sampling information and bring it back to you. So apologies for not having anything further to add other than Sophie and I clarifying that it's not really a WDC matter.
Any questions for Murray about that? No. Right, so we have a recommendation that the zoning committee receives these updates for its information. Do we have a mover? Erin, and a seconder?
Yeah.
Tim? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? None. Motion carried, thank you. We also have a recommendation that the Zone Committee confirms any amendments to its 2021-24 CWMS action plan. Is this something that we move now, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy to say that you're happy with it as it currently stands,
yep.
Through, yeah, that's also fine. It was just kind of to give us a record of you having paused and reviewed it.
Yeah. So there'll be a record of that which will carry through. So in that case, we do want to move, don't we? So do we have a mover for that? Is everyone clear what we're moving?
We haven't made any amendments, so we can't move that one, surely.
You can move that you're happy with it as is, I guess.
Yeah. So
why don't we move that it's, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah. Please do.
That we move that it stands as it currently is until reviewed later in the year.
Sounds good to me. So do we have a mover that the action plan stands as it currently is until later in the year?
Until it's
have more
reviewed.
direction.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have a mover?
I do.
That'll be clear.
Yeah. And a seconder?
I'm a seconder.
Do we have a second? Martha? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? None. Motion carried. Right, moving on to agenda item 5, the confirmation of minutes. Can the committee members please advise if they have any amendments for the minutes from the 4th of March meeting? No? Right, so we have a recommendation that the Zone Committee confirms the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of March 2024 as a true and accurate record. Do we have a mover? John? And a seconder? Claire, Eldenland? All those in favour? Aye. Against? None, and motion carried. Are there any matters arising from the minutes? No. I wanted to ask Murray. I did want to ask Murray, didn't I? What was it about the timing of the refresh in the Zone Committee? Or did we talk about that last time?
That was, we did note that you did ask that in the previous meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's under your general business on page 130.
Yeah. And were we planning to, because of the refreshers later in the year, was that what was included?
Yeah, it was, I guess, pragmatically decided to defer it until we get greater clarity from the review process that's already underway as to do we need a refresh? If so, when? It could be that, for instance, it could be in the early new year if required. So hopefully by the time we get through to about August, we should have a bit more clarity as to the timing and need for a refresh.
And I guess we could just be seeking a couple more community members, couldn't we? If we've got no one that's due to stand down.
Yeah, I think
might be as well.
Yeah, I think you two might have come through at the same time. But yeah, certainly the committee, under the current terms of reference, a committee can have between 4 and 7 community representatives. So, so yeah, I think the committee's got the opportunity to bring people on.
Cool. Okay, well, does anyone else have any other business? Claire?
Sorry, just with regard to matters arising on the minutes.
Yep.
On page 113, it matters arising last of these minutes. I was still waiting for a response from ECAN's Rivers team regarding the spraying of willows. I had a response a couple of days later after the meeting. I haven't got my email in front of me, but apparently from 2016 we have done occasional spraying of willows on the Kaipara River. Not all spraying since 2010 or 11.
Oh, thanks for that update, Claire. Right, oh, Tim, yep.
Just a quick on the refresh process, just seeking some guidance. As WDC's rep, had sought some initial feedback. We had a meeting with Dan, and in the last council meeting where this came up, I think we undertook to basically scope out what a common view of WDC might be on this. So what form of sort of input does this committee expect? Do you expect a representation or a submission from WDC? I don't know whether it's a governance thing, because we are a joint party to this committee. So what's appropriate, do you think, for us? What do you want?
Just to clarify, which only partially responded to what Tim's raised, but we are having interviewed all of, we'll have workshops with all of the committees. We are now interviewing all of the mayors. So we'll have time with Mayor Gordon on the 17th of May. And I guess that generally, as we've moved through, mayors have, I guess, received feedback from either councillors and staff in terms that, I guess, has helped form a council position and through that review process. So
thank you. So it's basically channeled through the mayors. We delegate to the mayor, and we do work in the background.
At this stage, yes. So we just thought, in terms of timing and getting through, we thought those key essential things was to give time for all the committee members to provide feedback, the mayors, and also to Runanga representatives and Runanga chairs as well.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Because that was what you guys did today, was it?
Well, it probably was one thing, yeah. We didn't get the agendas, so I couldn't make it today.
Yeah. Cool, right, oh well. Erin?
I have some general business over here. I just wanted to check in with Murray if he had an update on ECAN's position about policy 8.4.3, which is the review of surface water and hydraulically connected groundwater in the Ashley River catchment.
I do. We've choreographed this.
Excellent question.
Erin did ask this rather specific and a timely question, and so I relayed that through to the planning team, and they came back to confirm that the regional council was currently undergoing its long-term planning process, in which it will set its budget and work program priorities for the next 10 years. So funding for consent reviews will be a consideration within that budgeting. But until we know the outcome of the process, we are not planning on beginning a consent review in the Rakahuri catchment. So that was the formal response, I guess, from Erin raising that query, just in terms of. So I just thought we'd add that general business.
Cool, thank you. Do you have any response to that, Erin?
Oh, no. No, I've got an off the record response, but it's still on the record, so no.
Cool. Any other business, Claire?
Just recently, Etheridge has been party to a significant piece of work that's been done and completed around basically how much investment would be needed in monitoring to actually show on the ground actions impact from a nitrate level in the ground and surface water. And it might be quite interesting perhaps at some stage in the future if we think about how we might be informed about some of that work. You can search it yourself and see whether it's something that we perhaps might like to have a discussion around as a zone committee.
Yeah.
And it aligns with who is he? Commissioner of Environment, Simon Upton's thinking, you know, that we need to invest a lot of money in to get the science and the data, because it looks like over 20 or 30 years of information that you need to be able to show that what the on-the-ground actions that land users are making are actually making an impact, and there's a lot of noise that's also confusing the picture. So
Yeah, so SIB's work.
I think it might have been
in
National
conjunction
Science
with
and
the
Land
Allen
Care.
Order.
Yeah, I think
Allen
it was.
Order National Science Challenge, yeah. So they've got, I don't know if it's publicly available now, but there's a really cool website that they were prototyping where you could zoom into your catchment and say what it was you wanted to monitor, how frequently you were going to monitor it, and what you, and maybe where exactly in the catchment, and it would tell you the percentage likelihood of actually detecting change.
Yeah, that's right. It's
That's
crucial,
what
isn't
the
it?
paper's about. but I
Yeah,
don't know
I mean,
to
it's
pick up.
surprising how much,
How unpractical to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
pretty much.
It's going to be a long time before we see the changes.
Yeah.
That's the sense I'm getting.
Yeah.
Or a lot more investment required, to detect it at all.
Yeah, no, he doesn't think. Well, the suggestion is it's probably going to be very hard.
Right,
Thank
now
you.
have we finished other business? Anybody else? No?
No more nitrate. Literally.
Cool, well that brings us to the end of today's meeting. The next public meeting will be on
July.
July, yeah, we don't have one in July.
first Monday in July.
It's the 1st of July.
1st of July, and presumably we'll have a workshop of some sort in the interim.
So that would provisionally be the,
I'll be an apology for the
when's
first
it,
of July.
3rd of June, because that will be King's birthday, isn't it?
Oh, didn't we set a date last time?
For June.
The 10th or the 17th.
Something. Can't remember, it's in my calendar, sorry.
Oh, Murray will let us know.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Adrian just to, in and around the holidays, just work out which is the appropriate Monday and just put that as a placeholder in the
Not many people.
That wasn't on
Soldier.
information of the April.
That was quite short and sweet.
Yeah, they're even like saying.
And anyway,
So agenda item finished, they came in at agenda item 4. Sorry about that, guys. Could we please have a karakia to close the meeting by Claire?
Sure. Kia whakairia te tapu, kia waitia ai te ara, kia turuki, whakataka ai, huie, tai kia.
And call, yeah.
We have at 6.